Mr. President, Vasily Alexeyevich, thank you so much for this opportunity, dear members of the Security Council. When I last briefed this Council on the 16th of May, I spoke of three bottom lines, priorities. 1, de-escalation. 2, reviving the political process. 3, bridging different groups of international stakeholders through high-level diplomacy. Time for high-level diplomacy. So let me report on where we stand on each of these elements. De-escalation. On de-escalation, I regret to say I have very little to report, or very little positive to report. In fact, I am gravely concerned at the turn of events, particularly in Southwest. There, now, while we are talking, we see a full-scale ground offensive and aerial bombardment, as well as exchanges of fire from both sides. We, at this Security Council, cannot allow, I want to believe, this to become another Ghouta, Eastern Ghouta, or another Douma, or another Eastern Aleppo, or Aleppo in general, where so many civilians were sacrificed and died. And yet I see things moving in this direction. Let us be aware of what this would mean if the Southwest sees a full-scale battle to the end. It could be like Aleppo and Eastern Ghouta combined together in terms of the population in the areas that might be affected. Some 45,000 people, perhaps almost 50,000 I hear, have already been displaced due to fighting, mostly from Eastern Dara Governorate to areas near the Jordanian border. This year alone, nationwide, more than 900,000 people have been displaced in Syria. Can you imagine if we would add also to that the number of all those who are actually in the Eastern Dara Governorate? My colleague John Jing, who I see and greet from here, will brief you on these issues in more depth in due course. And we must think also of the regional implications. As the Secretary General, Antonio Guterres, himself has said, escalation in the Southwest poses significant risks to regional security and stability, a point I've myself constantly underscored. In fact, regional tensions continue. Just to give you one example, only this Monday, airstrikes were reported on Damascus airport, which Syrian state media attributes to Israel. We are not in a position to independently confirm this, nor has Israel made any statement on the matter, but we are concerned that a full-scale tension battle in the Southwest could only add fuel to this type of tensions. Our position on Aleppo, on Ghouta, and elsewhere in Syria has always been to put the sanctity of human civilian life above all else. We have seen months of intensified back and forth regional dialogue on the Southwest. Well, and we looked at it with interest because we saw that, and we believed that there was some progress. So I urge, therefore, all parties, the Syrian government, the armed groups, and all interested parties to draw on the lessons that we all learned from Eastern Ghouta, from Ghouta, from Aleppo and elsewhere, and use the channels that already exist, and we know where they are, and we know they exist, and work on arrangements that could prevent further human suffering, protect civilians, and provide an exit from this potential further tragedy of the 7-year-old cruel conflict. I hope we will be having an opportunity in the private chamber to debate on this issue because we are concerned. Now, on the Constitutional Committee, we are beginning to see some movement towards a political process. Hence, that's why we are so concerned that military escalation could have the potential of compromising the progress that we are seeing on the political front. During this month, we have intensified our efforts to find a way ahead for the implementation of the Sochi final statement, for the establishment of a Syrian-led, Syrian-owned, UN-facilitated constitutional committee within the framework of the Geneva process and in accordance with the Security Council Resolution 2254. Syrian government provided 4.5 months after the Sochi Declaration, a catalyst on the 28th of May. In other words, when they conveyed to my office in Damascus 50 names for their government list. I have expressed appreciation to the Syrian government for this important step. I have also expressed my appreciation to the Russian Federation and the Islamic Republic of Iran, with whom I know the Syrian government has discussed this list and whose encouragement has helped produce this movement. After receiving the list, I decided therefore to consult key regional partners in Istanbul, Tehran, Cairo, and elsewhere, and I saw senior officials of those countries, President Sisi of Egypt, officials of the Arab League, opposition leaders. I was in contact with the Russian Federation at several levels, the United States and the European countries. And on the basis of these useful discussions, I determined that it was now time to take advantage of this initiative of the Syrian government and step up consultations and go deeper. So on the 19th of June, I held formal joint consultations at a very senior level in Geneva with the Russian Federation, the Republic of Turkey, and the Islamic Republic of Iran. We discussed the best way to implement the Sochi final statement, to establish a Syrian-led, Syrian-owned constitutional committee under UN auspices in Geneva. And I must say, it was a constructive meeting. Much of the discussion concerned the composition of the committee, as well as the issues such as decision-makings and how to avoid deadlocks. The aim was to seek some preliminary understandings. Participants did exchange opinions on these matters in a very interactive and constructive way. Some common ground actually emerged, preliminary, but emerged. Overall, a spirit of productive negotiation and potential compromise did emerge. I also detected all three countries recognized the need for a constitutional committee that is credible in the eyes of the international community. On 22 June, I met with officials from the European Union who provided sound advice, and I will shortly meet with High Representative Mogherini on these issues tomorrow. On 25 June, I hosted joint consultations in Geneva with France, in alphabetical order, Germany, the Hashemite Kingdom of Jordan, the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, the United Kingdom, and the United States. We discussed the escalation arrangements in depth, a key element, obviously, underpinning progress on the political front. Views were exchanged on the importance of diplomatic bridging between different groups on Syria and prospects for progress on the constitutional track. There was a clear expectation from these countries, and let me be frank, these countries are having an interest and a stake in the process, and also are the ones who could be important players in any potential reconstructions. That any constitutional committee must be credible and internationally legitimate, that it must contain a diverse and representative spectrum of Syrians, including those mentioned in the Sochi final statement, such as independents, civil society, experts, and women. Based on my consultation with many stakeholders, I intend to maintain my prerogative to contribute to adjust the committee so as to ensure, one, its credibility, and two, international legitimacy. And in terms of women, let me underscore my own expectation that any constitutional committee must include at minimum 30% of women. In this connection, I noted with pleasure that in the government list that was provided to us, the 50 names, there was 26% of women. Not enough, because we are aiming at 30%, but a very good signal. And I will certainly not be impressed by the argument that others may raise that there are not enough Syrian women competent on constitutional issues. Just yesterday, for instance, over 200 Syrian women from diverse backgrounds met in Beirut for a conference organized by UN Women. Syrian women. Despite their differences, they agreed on many points, including on women's equal participation in decision-making, including in any constitutional committee. I also take note of the recent letter of support for women's full and effective participation, at least at 30% representation, in the Constitutional Committee, which was sent around to you and to us by the representatives of the Security Council, Peru, Sweden, and United Kingdom. We now await an opposition list of names, and we hope this will come shortly, on which serious work, I know, is being conducted while we are talking. And I will be proceeding also to facilitate the process of bridging the independents, experts, tribal leaders, civil society, and women, as indicated in the Sochi Declaration, and frankly, in many of our common deliberations. I should add that both meetings in Geneva underscored one important point, and I would like to underscore it myself: the support of key countries for the UN role in facilitating the political process in Geneva, including, very much, the Constitutional Committee. Overall, this consultation represents a cautious, I have to be cautious, having seen how we went sometimes one step ahead and two backwards, a cautious step forward. But let me be clear, this is a package, and that has been something that we have discussed with everyone, where nothing is agreed until everything is agreed. That's why it's work in progress. And I'm also aware that this process will need the consent and engagement with the Syrian government and parties with full respect of their concerns and sensitivities, the government, the opposition, and civil society. I will continue on my side to facilitate further movement in this direction, to seek the support, counsel, and advice of many, which is why I anticipate inviting the Sochi conveners or co-conveners back to Geneva in the coming weeks, as well as the 6 countries I saw on Monday and others, and then report, of course, to you, to the Security Council. Let me also flag, if we are to move on a constitutional process and towards what everyone in Syria tells us they want, a safe, calm, and neutral environment, it will be important to start to see steps that have the prospects of restoring trust and confidence and social peace. And that's why we are concerned when we see unilateral legislative acts, such as the one of Law Number 10, which we understand many refugees got very worried about, and frankly, I heard even very much neighboring countries such as Lebanon. We also urge concrete action on the detainees file. Today, a technical team, while we are talking, from my office is in Ankara for the working group on the release of detainees, abductees, the handover of bodies, and identification of missing people, of which the UN is a member together with Iran, Russia Federation, and Turkey. As you know, so far, the outcome has been 0. However, we are not giving up, and this meeting today is already the 3rd meeting of the working group, which deals with a key humanitarian issue that affects thousands and thousands of Syrian people. What is necessary now is what we expect and that the Syrian people expect are some concrete steps and results to alleviate the suffering of those who are affected by this tragic situation. Members of my team who are present in Ankara today will continue proactively to support this working group, which was established in Astana. I hope that all actors involved will demonstrate the required political will to produce some results in this field. Bridging. In the meantime, we continue to seek ways to bridge different groups of international stakeholders through high-level diplomacy. This is my third bottom line, and we have seen that taking place. Serious, robust, and sustainable dialogue is vital to underpin the escalation, which is needed very much now, and the political process in general. I discussed this issue with President Sisi in Cairo when I was there, who gave me some constructive ideas in this regard. And I believe we are already seeing an emerging web of international discussions, high level, on Syria. Frequent contacts between the United States and the Russian Federation, for instance, at many different levels. Communications at very high level between President Putin and President Macron, and President Putin and Chancellor Merkel, and intensified talks between the United States and Turkey over various issues. All that we can build on. I've shuttled around all relevant capitals recently, and so I can say with some authority or confidence that there is some common ground to build upon, which could provide solid ground for some understanding and concrete understandings. Many countries are not that far on issues which are, frankly, easy to resolve or address, such as national sovereignty, unity, and many others, and we have been working on it. Let me reiterate once again that the UN stands ready to use its own good offices and competence and experience. We have a whole team working on this bridging of commonalities to contribute to facilitating international dialogue in the search of such commonalities. So, in conclusion, in sum, 1, Mr. President, dear members of the Security Council, we are moving cautiously in the right direction on the political front. And I ask for all of you and your support, including the support of the Syrian government who is sitting in the Security Council, in facilitating this effort, an effort that must ultimately be Syrian-owned, Syrian-led, because no country or no organization can simply impose a fait accompli on the Syrian people. That we know, but we need to move forward. Second message, currently we are gravely concerned by the battlefield developments and their potential to expand into regional tensions. So we do urge this Council and all interested parties to help in finding an arrangement or a solution in the southwest that will spare civilian suffering and large movements of displaced people and reduce the potential tension so that we don't see once again, 7 years afterwards, perhaps when we are getting closer and closer to the end of this conflict, a repetition of what we saw sadly in Aleppo and in Eastern Ghouta. Thank you.